All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program. You know, we're talking Johnny Cuba, European roots with that Caribbean soul. You pick up a refreshing German lager in a can. Go to johnnycuba.us. You use the Johnny locator. You find the nearest location to you. How else could you enjoy the Game 5 tonight? Yankees World Series. That's right. Remember, always drink responsibly, and don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us now is our pal, Boog Sciambi, on the call, ESPN Radio. Boog, good to see you. How are you?
Will you say stay tranquilo one more time for me?
Stay tranquilo.
All right, thank you. I'm good, brother. I'm good.
I've enjoyed hearing you. I've only listened to the first couple episodes. I've enjoyed hearing you on the oral history for the Levine show. Did you like doing that?
So when I was in town with the Cubs, I cut a South Beach sessions with Dan, and then I also I visited with Mike Ryan. So yeah, so that's how we got that done. 20
years.
I know, it's
crazy,
amazing,
right?
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. 20 years. But I love hearing about and even talking about, if it ever comes up with me around, I love hearing about and talking about those times.
Yeah, I mean, it was back in the day, and I think the part that's neat about it is that I don't think anybody involved had an idea of what they were going to try to turn it into, what exactly it would look like. I think that one of the things with Dan is like the sensibility is to trust himself. He trusts that he'll find stuff that's interesting or funny. But it was sort of a winding path. I mean, he didn't even know Stu Gatz. I mean, I knew Stu Gatz longer than I knew Dan. So it's a funny thing how it's played out.
And people don't, I remember it, but you reveal, or whoever it was that revealed it, that the initial idea for their show, it was for either you and him to be together or for Greg Cody and him to be together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he and I talked about it. I think in the end, I mean, there was a combo of things. I think one was, for me was time, but I also would say, I don't know if we felt like I thought at the time that we would agree too much, so like, I think we both have a unique perspective on sports and just overall, but I think it is less so now. I think there are more people out there in the mainstream that look at it that way. But I would also say, for back then, I think that it sort of, I guess to some extent, kind of mutes some of the uniqueness, because I just think we would have agreed too much. I mean, I don't think that would have been the only way it would have been delivered. I think we also would have delivered some really good stuff, but that was sort of the, part of it. And Dan actually disagrees with that idea.
I don't have a ton to base it on. Of course, now at this point, we're 20 years later, but that run ended 2 years ago where $7.90 a ticket doesn't exist anymore. I don't have a ton to base it on, but that lineup on $7.90, once we got to like a year, it was about a year into the station, maybe even a year and a half, such a dominant daytime lineup.
Yeah, it was a good lineup. And it was fun. And again, each show was its own, sort of microcosm. So I think each show delivered kind of a different, a different type of thing. And obviously, me getting a chance to do the show, that's how you and I got connected, which was cool.
I recently told the story the other day. I was in a meeting up in ESPN West Palm, and I was asked, how did you get your start? And I recently rehashed the time. I don't know if you remember it. You were doing your first show. I was 23 years old, and it's 20 fucking years ago. And you said before the show, hey, just turn on your mic, talk whenever you want. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. And then after the show, I didn't do any talking on the show. And then after the show in the parking lot, you told me, no, seriously, just turn on your mic whenever you want. And at that point, I was like, oh, he really does mean that,
Right.
and away we go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was one of those. I mean, for me, I'm doing a solo show. So at the time, so I think, it was a way to, I mean, to some extent, it was like using you as a vehicle to engage the audience. But then also, you got more and more comfortable developing your personality. And we learned all sorts of things about you, like, you don't eat ribs or things that'll get dirty on your hands or,
Right.
stuff like that. And I think we all had a good time with that.
That's right. Hey, how was the atmosphere last night? Yankee Stadium.
It was good. I mean, they were waiting on it, I mean, I will say Freddie Freeman hits the first home run, and the place was like, are you serious? Come on.
It's the worst thing that could happen. Like, it's one thing for Ohtani to hit the home run, but it's Freeman hitting it. It's so much worse.
Yes. So, like, the best sign of the night, a guy is holding up a sign that just said, Freddie, please stop. It's a great sign. So, but then, once Volpe hits the homer and they finally just went bananas and, and it was off to the races. So this is going to get interesting. It's in the history of the World Series, when a team's gotten up 3-0, it's never gotten to a game 6. So 24 times in the World Series, and it's never gotten to a game 6. So, again, in the World Series, in the LCS, it has gotten to a game 7 twice. And once, the Red Sox came all the way back. Look, with Cole tonight, if you were to ask me, my best guess, I think we're probably going back to LA for a game 6. But I think that the one component that you can't sort of dismiss, and for as much as we love to talk pitching and defense, this Dodger lineup is ferocious. So, like, there's so many guys that can get you. If Ohtani's not getting you, it could be Muncy, it could be Will Smith. Gavin Lux was a monster in the second half. Edman won the NLCS MVP. So, it's good pitching beats good hitting most of the time, but like, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll see how it plays out. But if I gave you my best guess, I think we're going back to LA.
So because it's Garrett Cole on the hill tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, and the Dodgers have dominated the series before last night, but because it's Garrett Cole on the hill tonight, are we in a place now, or am I just trying to talk myself into there being juice in this series? Are we in a place now where, wow, can you imagine if Freddie Freeman did not hit that game 1 home run, what tonight would feel like?
Wow, that's a funny one. I wouldn't go there. I don't know what to tell you on that one. I mean, I guess I would just look. The Dodgers are the better team. Let's be clear. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure in terms of if the Yankees win this game, then it gets really interesting. I think that the issue becomes, the Dodgers in 6 and 7, have starting pitching advantages, I think. So, but again, we'll see how it plays out tonight.
Boog, I'm not as connected to Major League Baseball as I used to be, so maybe there's a little bit of ignorance here, but why are we in a place now in the World Series where yesterday we have a bullpen game for the Dodgers?
So it's a couple of things, but I think that I think that the first component is specific to the Dodgers. They lost more games to injury than any team in baseball this year. So they don't have a guy on their postseason roster that threw 100 innings for the Dodgers this year. Think about that. I mean, their team leader was Gavin Stone with 140 and a third. And they don't have a guy on the postseason roster that threw 100 innings. Like, normally your team leader is going to be 180, 190, 170, and you have
it's like you don't have someone who started 20 games then this year.
Correct. So there's that. But then the other component is this. The reason it's a bullpen game is because in the past, they would just throw sacrificial starter X out there and almost without realizing it, punt the game. A bullpen game is we're trying to win the game. So, like, because it has the opportunity to pitch some of your higher leverage guys, and you're taking a shot at it as opposed to, well, let's just see. Brent Honeywell could start, and hopefully he'll get 5 1/3, and then he gets knocked out, and then you just sort of surrender, and that's not the way they do it. It's like, let's let, Kasparius go one time through the order, even if it's good, and then we'll move on. So it's tactical. It's because it works. Look, in the postseason this year, relievers have thrown a higher percentage of the innings than the starters for everybody.
It's weird.
It's weird, but it's also why they do, because that's what works. Because every guy comes in is like, who's this guy? How do you pronounce his name? He's throwing how hard?
Right.
That's what every guy is.
So I know, Aaron Boone's gotten a ton of criticism, but now that we're going into game 5 tonight, Freddie Freeman has hit a home run in all 4 games, considering, and 6 World Series games in a row. But considering what took place in game number 1 and Freeman hitting the grand slam, isn't it like, don't we now know it's less about Boone going to Cortez that game and more about Freddie Freeman's just on a fucking heater?
Yeah. Again, it's, yes, the idea that credit to Freddie is it should be the lead. There's no doubt about it. I think that there's the one thing for me, because, we get a chance to meet with the managers every day, we get off the record stuff too. So the one thing that I will tell you is that for the average person second guessing, whatever, these guys are contemplating and have so much more information at their fingertips than people are aware of or contemplating. So I think that, and it doesn't mean the managers can't make, incorrect decisions. I think the biggest thing on the Nestor Cortez thing is he hadn't thrown, a competitive pitch in close to 6 weeks. I understand that, but the tactics, look, if the rules weren't, if the rules were not 3-batter minimum, then he would have done the the Tony La Russa left, right, left, and brought Tim Hill in to face Ohtani, would be my guess. But because there's one out and it's Ohtani and then Betts, he did not feel good about bringing Hill in and the possibility that he'd have to face Mookie Betts. So that's the math that he did, that he felt like if you're going to have to get a lefty and a righty, the righty component of it just terrified him. And that's why he went with Nestor.
For everyone who second guesses the manager in baseball and thinks that it's not that hard, how fast would the game move?
Yeah,
for that
it moves
person
so fast.
if they were managing.
The guys in the bullpen they don't get up on their own. And then there's subtle things too. There's a great clip, you can find it online, but last year where in a huge game towards the end of the season, so 2023, Craig Counsell's managing the Brewers, and I think it's tied, and it's a split screen. So up top is Mark Canha, who's at the plate, and the bottom is just a shot of Craig Counsell. So he has Devin Williams up in the pen in the 8th inning of what I think is a tie game with 2 guys on, and it might even be down a run. But Canha hits a homer. I think it was tied. So it's a 3-run homer. And Counsell, his first reaction is to go to the bullpen phone to tell Devin Williams to sit down because he doesn't want to use his closer in that spot. And in a similar way last night, Luke Weaver was going to finish that game. Once the runs start to come, he gets up. Eventually, he got up Canely, and he got up someone else, and then he got up Tim Meza so that he doesn't have to use the good guys. So there's just so many components to it that that factor in. Yes, it really it just really it moves fast. There's no doubt.
Do you know Freddie Freeman much?
I do.
Is he just awesome?
He's amazing. Yeah, he's a hugger. He's somebody, like, if I see Freddie today, he will hug me, and he hugs everybody. And he's a pretty incredible story for a guy who was drafted in the second round, and all but two teams wanted him as a pitcher. Most people don't know. So, like, the Braves and the Cubs wanted him as a hitter. Everybody else wanted him as a pitcher. He threw 95. He still has a fantasy about coming into a game and throwing 95. But he's a pretty incredible talent. And I would say that going into this series, of the six guys, Stanton, Soto, Judge, Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, I feel like Freddie was being talked about the least by a lot.
Yeah. So. Yeah. How cool is after game one and him and his father behind the plate?
Yeah. And it was, it's funny. I have a quote on my card. His father was interviewed after the game, and Freddie lost his mom to cancer when he was 10. He wears a lock of her hair in a necklace. He always wears sleeves. She died of skin cancer. He always wears sleeves every game he's ever played because of that. He wears number 5 because that was the number he wore in Little League when she died. And also his two brothers, Andrew and Philip, plus his dad and his mom, Rosemary, they were the Freeman 5. But his dad, after the game, like, his dad still throws BP to him in the offseason. And his dad, after the game, was so just real and wonderful. But the quote that he said was, "I never meant for him to be an MLB player. It was just something we did together. I just wanted him to make his high school team have friends and ride the bus with the guys." That's it. So he wasn't one of these hard charging dads who was like, "You got to make the majors." And it was great too, because he didn't say anything to his dad. They just yelled at each other.
Yeah. Great shit, Boog. Tell everyone what time you guys get started this evening on the ESPN Radio.
I think pregame starts at 7 Eastern, and then we'll be on a little after 8 with the first pitch with Jessica Mendoza, Eduardo Perez, and Buster Olney. Were
you happy with your call at the end of game one? Do you still fuss over that kind of stuff?
The timing of it, I didn't love the way, I just got so excited, and I was, it had a holy shit component to it. I didn't love where my voice went, but there's nothing you could do about it. It got a little sort of growly, but I was excited, and I was on time, which I really, when you're doing it on the radio, I still feel like you're broadcasting for an audience, they can't see it. So I wanted to be on time and describe, and I did. And I felt like my call mirrored what was happening with the ball and the crowd. So I didn't love it, but it's good enough.
Did you see what happened in real time last night with the fan?
Yes.
And Mookie Betts, you saw it.
Yeah. I mean, I did not see that the guy grabbed him in real time, but the replay came quickly and I saw what had happened. But I knew there was fan interference, and I said it live in real time, but I didn't realize it was, hey, you're in the crowd and we're going to try and pry the ball out of your glove. It's funny. I will tell you this, like, it's interesting in today's world of media, that how it works. Like, the guys from John Boy are Yankee fans, and they played a clip and they are roaring, laughing. And like, I didn't really find it funny.
It's the stupidest shit. It is.
I didn't really find it funny. Like,
well, I think the least funny part is the second guy who then grabs Mookie's wrist. I think that's the worst part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just really, and it's funny because I made the point of the broadcast. Okay, start with this. He is free game in terms of going for the ball because he's reaching into the stands. Once he reaches into the stands, they are as entitled to it as he is. But he caught it. So, like, they're not as entitled to, like, take his wallet and the ball out of his glove. You know what I mean?
Can I just add, though, what you said is obviously true, but what a ridiculous rule that allows them to be as entitled to the ball as the player.
Well, it's the stands, though. Like, it's a line of demarcation. It's like, it's the stands.
I get it, but it feels ridiculous still that the fans are just as entitled to the ball as the player in that spot. That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Boog, excellent job. Thanks for hanging out today. Appreciate it, man.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man.